Alrighty. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, YouTubers. This is Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon. Um, Thought I would do a fireside chat. I mean, it's very rare that time and conditions, you know, come together. And not that cold of a day, but I had a little fire going just to keep it going, and I thought, well, shoot, I've been working on getting this put together for quite some time. So and I'll just stop by saying one thing that this talk is reminding me of is the fact that once upon a time in a galaxy, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away in my life, um, I've talked about it a couple times before, but my son and I were in Kansas. We were stopped at for overnight stay. We did this three times at people that we become friends with, a family, Barry and Shirley Stemper. They were the operators or owners of a business called the Pickle Cottage. And make a long story short, they were multimillionaires, and their product was sold at every Cracker Barrel in the country, restaurant. The first guy that pulled up to their truck farm was the buyer from Bloomingdale's, and he said, I will buy everything that you can produce. They ended up becoming very wealthy, had pictures of them and with Reagan and Dan Quayle in the White House, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay. But as we were leaving one time, suddenly Shirley put her hand out and prophesied over me and said, you will not be living in that schoolhouse in Kansas where we were living at the time when we ran our Y2K business, but you will be living closer to the land, closer to the earth, closer to the earth than you ever thought possible. And a lot of other things I believe that applied to. What went through my mind when she said that was, I have two teepees, and that's, if that's what it comes down to, my family, we can live in a teepee. That's living pretty darn close to the earth. If we were living any closer to the earth, I'd have to be living inside of the earth. A couple months later, I'm standing inside of a cob house, which we lived in for an entire year, looking up at the earth-covered roof and the solid earth floor and the solid earth walls 3 feet thick, and I thought, I'm living inside the earth. But there's always multiple, not always, but often there are multiple applications to an idea or a prophecy, and in this case, I would have never thought that I would be living close enough to the earth to be out enjoying, not being forced to, but enjoying splitting wood, gathering wood, and just doing the mundane, slave labor kind of things that are required to stay warm in the winter. And yet, as events have played out in my life, I'm actually have a growing collection of splitting axes and mauls, and I'm going to go do that now, and I need to get this done so I can get out and gather wood. It's a nice day out. Friend's coming over, and she's about out of wood, and we're going to go out and get wood out of the pasture and split it with the maul. That's a lot of it. So anyway, I'm going to hopefully get a video in on the splitter, the hydraulic splitter, and do a timed thing on that. I have, just to let you know what's coming up, that's loading. I've got about 10 videos loading right now. Part of my sun splitting is up. I have a friend's son, Seth, who split 3 rounds. That should have been up a week ago, and I apologize. It's been bad signal sometimes when I'm loading. There's, like I said, there's a bunch of videos loading, and they've been loading for 3 or 4 days now. Anyway, and I did one. I took too much time talking, and I had picked a round with a big knot in it, and so my time was really bad. That's not what I intended to do. My intention is to show that, you can split rounds by hand quicker, but I got carried away talking and ended up being quite a long time. Isaac did it in about 1 minute and 20 seconds. I don't know, I have to look at it. less than 2 minutes. Seth did it in like a minute and 20 seconds flat. I took about 7 minutes because I got carried away talking and using 3 different tools instead of just using one. Sticking with the Fisker's Maul, I should have just stuck with that instead of getting techie. Okay, anyway, this is Braden Rockcliffe, Vancouver Island, what you're seeing here on the screen. You'll notice in his right hand, he has another axe. Those are Husqvarna 2800 gram axes. That's how they rate theirs. Mine are 1600. I don't know if I don't remember how to. Okay. I figured out how to pause it, remembered. So you can see the similarities here. Overstrike protection, very heavy. The back on these is actually something you can hammer with, at least wedges. I wouldn't do a lot of steel with it, but you know, you can. They're similar to the Fisker's axe. They are hollow handle, so they're light. Anyway, that's what he's using there. So I use these as exercise weights. I have 2 of them, so right, left hand, I can do my T-tap, you know, shoulder exercises, and off and on, or one of my shoulders will hurt, but anyway. So I'm living closer to the earth than I ever thought possible. My whole life has been that of, you know, basically doing research, reading, studying, reading, studying, reading, studying. Very little. I mean, most of my life I've done manual labor, quote unquote, you know, but not really doing it to stay in shape, just doing it because I had to do it. All right, so here you see him splitting, and there's 137.5 degrees, you know. This kid designed, I mean, he's not a dense kid at all. He designed a geodesic dome type of a shelter. Very interesting. So anyway, the idea of cutting down a tree with an axe, this is, you'll see a Madrone Density 7.4. That's an arbutus tree up in Vancouver Island. There's another guy that I really like, and you'll be seeing some of his stuff here. Buck and Billy Ray Smith. They're both these guys are on Vancouver Island, just amazing. Billy Ray does firewood for friends, family, and his growing YouTube army supports him in doing that. So he can go out and cut elderly people's firewood and, you know, be able to take care of his family, but do it for free of charge to the family. This Grippo, I'll show you this in a minute. Again, tools for gathering firewood. Oh, that's going to be really irritating if that keeps up. Then I found these just good. They're good pictures. I did buy some on eBay. They were new, but you can see they have replaceable tips. You smack those into firewood and swing them real hard, and they bite into the wood, and then they can those barbs on the tips actually. You can pick up a piece of wood and have it hang down vertically from that tip. I mean, they're just amazing tools. I learned about those from Buck and Billy Ray Smith. Shot on my twin Husky axes. This is Buck and Billy Ray Smith, and he is a self-confessed axeaholic. Okay, he's addicted to axes, and he's going over some of the books he's got here. A Guide to Axemanship and Wood, and etc. The Lore and Science of the Woodcutter by D. Cook, illustrated by S. Lawrence Whipple. American Axes. And these are books that people have sent him because they love him. He gets things in the mail. The Axe and Man, and that's by Charlie, I can't quite tell. I have to look that one up. But anyway, that's Buck and Billy Ray. And that's a better picture of the author there. Henry J. Kaufman. So, Buck and Billy Ray says, it is my 100% belief that as men we must expel physical energy. Okay. And in this scene, he is doing a couple things. He's splitting wood with a double bit axe. and he's also just teaching about the flicking the, as you impact it flips sideways. You can see there the axe is sideways. Golf swing, smacks it. He's just so used to doing this. So is Braden. You know, they come around. That axe is going around. He's windmilling it, bringing it over his head. His other hand's coming up. It's just instinctive, and he's coming around for another swing. So, as long as I am on YouTube, he says. This is from the video, Hand Splitting Firewood, Become a Better Axeman. I will ramble on about the flick. Okay, and that's the, like I said, the flipping the axe. Now that one axe I have is designed to do that, and there was a guy, Tom Clark, from Potosi, Missouri. He's passed away now, but there's a video of him online, a couple of videos showing that he can. There's a scenario of this lady is parked in the road. There's a tree across the road, and she says, "I called, and they're going to come. They'll be about 20 minutes before they get here." And he's like, "I can have it cut up and blocked into firewood before they get here." So he gets out his chainsaw, bam, 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 and cuts it into blocks and splits it, stacks it on the road for somebody to take. But another video, very interesting one, is him. One guy's helping him, but a guy is helping two men running in a hydraulic splitter, and he beats them. They had the exact same number of rounds stacked up there, and he beats them. This is Billy showing the Grippo hook, and he says this will change the way you handle firewood forever. And I am going to pause this. All right. So, Buck and Billy Ray. What you're seeing here is like, this is from a video by August. He's a tree trimmer, tree guy. And one of the most famous ones on YouTube. He does very, just absolutely superior camera work. So this is really cool. Picture of him, and you'll see how this happened or what he's doing here. But I was watching this video, and this comes on, and I'm like, oh man, that's really weird. You know, kind of the ghostly overlay of the scenery behind him, or the scenery through the video. And he's talking, but I'm noticing the shirt. You know, that he's kind of ghostly, but the shirt, the print on that hoodie really stands out. Soldiers of Kindness. Well, that's Buck and Billy Ray. You can read it across the bottom there. Soldiers of Kindness. You know, once a month, do something completely free of charge, completely out of charity and love for somebody. And you don't do it because it's going to come back to you. If you do that, it doesn't work. You know, just do something as a blessing to someone else once a month. And Billy's done that his whole life, basically. So he's got this growing army, and got 100 and, I don't know, 100 and some thousand. So here it's a little bit solider, and he keeps talking, and now you can start seeing a truck window there on the right side of the screen there. And then you find out he's just sitting in his truck talking and commenting on his video. Pretty cool. It was neat. I enjoyed it. So doing firewood, you know, you can get as techie and artistic as you want. There's somebody that got quite artistic. The heart shape there in the middle is amazing. Whether they did that with a saw, who knows. But anyway, Wrangler Star's another good guy. He advocates a book, or reads from a book off and on, the Book of Camping and Woodcraft by Horace Kephart, Kephart. But he's a good, talks about how to rehandle axes, and that's what Buck and Billy Ray's doing here. This is actually a fireman's axe. Fireman's axe. He was fascinated with it, how well it split. So that's his shop back there. A little plaque back there saying kindness, something, something, something McCulloch Avenue. He's a very big McCulloch chainsaw advocate, which I thought they were like non-existent. Only thing I'd seen was Husqvarna and Stihl, but they're still out there in the Northwest and other places. They still, I don't know what the condition of the company's in, but but this guy, you know, uses them, and very big on it. I did this because I was looking at the axe there, but that's irrelevant at this point. This is him and his dad working. That's his father in the background there. To the right there, this is kind of an interesting shot because what I'm talking about here is physical labor, manual labor, physically doing everything. But the blue thing there down the bottom right of the screen is a Grippo. That's the tool that I mentioned. Grippo splitter. And the title of this video is the fastest splitter on Earth, or fastest splitter on the planet. And yet he does a lot of it by hand. Reason being is because it's easier for him on his back to split with a double bit axe or whatever than to pick up wood, because he was really badly injured, almost died out in the bush logging. So when they're doing this, when they're actually running the splitter, his dad's picking the stuff up and handing it to him, and he's doing the splitting, but he's not picking anything up. So if he's by himself, he just splits with an axe and maul and whatnot. So, alrighty, moving right along. So where I'm getting to something here in a minute, you know. Just quite the guy, always instructional in his videos. Very, very fascinating. Still going on about the axe. I shouldn't have had that many of them in here. There's his dad in the background pitching a split block. So that's just, this is a fuzzy picture because the camera was moving as he was doing it. I just wanted to get a shot of this. This is his museum. These are, I believe, pretty sure, I mean, he would sell one, but these are his personal collection of saws, and it's his repair shop. He's never talks about it. He does redo axes, but I don't know that he ever redoes a saw and sells it, or I'm sure he does, but he never doesn't have any videos on it about saw repair. These are pretty much, I think, my understanding is his personal collection, so quite impressive. When he goes out to do something, he takes 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of them, and this one here is a antique monster that he's redone. By color, I'd say it's McCulloch, but it's got F something on there on the side. I don't know. Anyway, the point here is that these are old saws, like museum piece saws. So, hand tools, Fisker's family of axes. I have the X27. I got an X25 for a friend to try. I wasn't impressed with it. I didn't really like it. The X27 I've been very impressed with. This is back to Braden Rockcliffe. He has a series called Making Firewood on Vancouver Island. Just absolutely fascinating. He's with his 2 axes there. There he's just starting, and you see in the foreground here, there's a Grand Forks Brook splitting maul there. That's his backup when he gets over there and he gets an axe stuck or just gets tired of doing the two-handed, which I don't think he would, but he goes to the splitting maul to finish this stuff up. That's how he splits wood. He just, parks out there and puts the wood out and splits it up into pieces, throws it in the trailer and goes home, and he sells firewood, so that's his business. There you can see both axes there. I'll get through this. I know it may be boring for most people. I don't know. Watching him do it is just absolutely fascinating. So there he's got both going, and might have had a picture of that earlier anyway. Just the dexterity and coordination and everything is just absolutely amazing. Alright, enough of that. Here's a picture of him out in the woods, again, roadside, wintertime, snow. He's been working, this is almost all split, and at one point he just rips his shirt off and keeps going. That one he's just jumping up in the air off of another one to really try to hammer on this one really big one right by the tailgate there. So, okay, so here's where I'm going with all of this. And I want to maybe just do an introductory, just a few of these. I've been looking at different ways of splitting wood, okay? and I'm going to say again, this is so basic, so critical. Recently, someone, I was on the phone with somebody, and I mentioned the most important thing is shelter, and they said, no, 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 you're wrong. We're talking survival. I'm not wrong. Shelter is the most critical thing other than hope and air. In other words, survival is a rule of threes. Within 3 seconds, you got to have hope. You got to have hope to go on. I'm talking about survival. I'm talking about the brutal, hardcore aspects of rules of survival. You need to have air to breathe. Every 3 minutes, you got to have air. Within 3 minutes. If you, in other words, it really is. I mean, you think about it. You got to have hope. You got to have clean air to breathe, or at least safe air to breathe. So dust mask, especially with the coronavirus going around, masks. A way to keep your lungs healthy. Very important. You could have a brine saturated mask, let it dry out. Sea salt will kill viruses. They make masks with activated charcoal in them. Activated charcoal draws in diseases and kills it. So I'm not going to belabor that, but my point is that within 3 days you got to have food. I mean, within 3 days you got to have water. So your basics are water, food, shelter. In what order? Shelter's number one. When someone says you got to have food, it just shows that they haven't studied survival at all, or at least not enough to, at any length of time to give it much thought. If you're in a survival situation, you have to have shelter from the heat, from the cold, whatever, from the elements, wind, dehydration. Shelter you got to have within 3 hours. So if 100 people show up, they're going to have to use the bathroom, and you're going to have to get them sheltered. Food, not even important at that point in time. You got to keep them alive. They'll die without shelter. So, and it'll take about 3 weeks to die of starvation, to really get hungry enough to die. Generally speaking, I've said this before, but most people, it's a 3-week situation before you got to have food. 3 days, water. Got to have clean water. Got to have shelter. So your number one priority is shelter. Number 2 priority is water. Number 3 priority is food. So these are mechanical ways to stay warm, being warm, having shelter. 6-1, they're part of the equation. You have got to have a way to provide heat. So this is a French video. This guy pops a piece of wood with a mechanical device. Then this lady pops a piece of wood. And then I believe there's another gal here. Might be the same one, but whatever. Irrelevant. Pops a piece of wood, bang. So it's a mechanical device, spring at the back. I'm going to say this one is basic, but still, as I started looking at these things and looking at ways to split wood, that's where we're going with this, is how can we build these things or build something like it so that an elderly woman, elderly person, man or woman, small person, a weak person, an injured person, can safely split wood. Because what I'm doing, and granted I'm enjoying it and it's good physical exercise because I'm still capable of doing it, but there's a lot of people that are not as old as me that just can't do it. Not as big as me, they can't do it. Maybe never could have done it. So I'm looking at how can we provide shelter, and that includes warmth through a winter. It's got to be firewood. So this is a different configuration. It's got weight on the top. But basically, as I'm looking at these things, the only thing that has to be metal is that blade. That's the only thing. Now this one, you see the spring is a stretching spring, a pulling spring. Okay. This is a ministry of some sort. I'm not sure. But there's a splitting block there. This guy's whacking one on the block. But then in another scene, they're using the block to stand on to split that really tall piece of wood. They have a couple girls do it to show that they can do it. This thing ran really well. Really worked good. There, this guy's going to split this big tall piece by standing on the block, and he does. Boom. Okay. There's a good picture of the spring stretched out. It's in the head is in the down position. The spring is stretched out. That doesn't have to be a steel spring. It could be bungee cords. It could be surgical tubing. Yeah, it could be anything. So there's, as you start looking for it, a manually powered mechanical axe is one way to describe them. I mean, there are hundreds of them. All different kinds of configurations, all different kinds of... But as I was doing that, I started looking for a better, the simplest one possible. Now this one is using, the axe is on that little table there, so it's using a compound action with a spring, etc. Weights on the head there. Little trailer operation there. You can pick it up and move it around really easily. This one's pretty well thought out. There, it's in the down position. The head is there on that, above that little table there. So, kind of a time-consuming, complicated way to do it, but whatever. I mean, you're picking a big piece of wood up and setting it on that little table thing, and I would imagine after bashing it a few thousand times that it might affect the construction of the thing. This one is pretty simple. A little tripod base there, set on I think it's a can of cement there to anchor it, but it's a tripod. Again, spring, weight, you can see it like a barbell weight or whatever above a lot of them add that so you can put more weight on it. Adjust the weight, you can put a 10 pound, 20 pound, 30 pound, 100 pound, whatever you want on it. Some of them get pretty techy. I don't know if they're selling this one, but Thor's hammer, very beautiful, very nicely done. Thorovo cleaver, it's a cleaver, another thing to call them. Gray one there, black one on the right. Again, now this one's set pretty low to the ground, a spring almost on the ground. Red one there in the middle, we'll see that one's pretty nice. There's a pretty blue one, nicely done, nicely painted. Now this is one of the ugliest, simplest, I mean, this guy didn't spend any money. I can just about guarantee you. I mean, he just threw it together. Weld, weld, weld. Yeah, that one's probably one of the ugliest. There's the red one, very nicely done, very, very pretty. And you can see there's a commonality among a lot of them, having a little triangular tripod base for the spring over there at the post, vertical post at the back. So I'll just scroll through these. I don't want to. One guy came up with a computer, done schematic. This is it. I'm not sure if this is the Thor's hammer one, but it's the same coloring. But you can see the cable system is made to adjust the spring. This guy is actually cranking it to where it's the correct height, so it's adjustable. He's letting it down there. Little kid here splitting wood, and they're going to show that in this background there you can see the spring of the device, so they're going to show him that he can run that a lot easier, safer and easier than he can do this splitting maul operation here. There he's smacking it. That's the head of the thing coming down. Yeah, the arm was just, it's right there. Kind of in between where he's at and the thing. That you can see the head there, the axe head. So here he's bringing it down and splitting wood with it. You can sit down and do it. I'm trying to keep everything together there where you can see the fire and I can keep my, oh man, my arm's just up in the air. I don't know how else to do this. Maybe move this a little. I'm going to try to move this a little bit closer without knocking anything else. Yeah, and then I could use my other hand. Here's another low budget one. The fluted thing on the top there is a spline off of an axle, so that they're heavy, solid steel, so he used that as a weight drive axle on a pretty big, heavy piece of equipment. That's an electric splitter. Yellow one there is pretty cool. The gray one looks pretty nice. There it is. Yeah. All over the world, they call them a Russian or Ukrainian. It's probably where they were first popularized, and there's thousands and thousands. I mean, you could probably look at these forever online and never run out of new videos. This one on the bottom left here, that orange one, the Pro 100, yeah, right. It's one of the junkier. There's on the right. There's your a big piece of equipment that'll split about 20 pieces of wood at once. Probably a Easton made wedge cutter. Nice, pretty one, blue one with ducks in the background. Oh, duckies. This is a really neat one. I like it. But again, you know, there's complicated, lots of welding involved, and that's not what I'm looking for. There's the Thor's hammer in use. I'm going to wrap this one up, I think, with Thor's hammer, and just pick it up on another one, because I don't know how many of these I have. I'll just flip through until the end. That one had the vertical post for barbell weight on top if you want. DIY homemade log splitter. That one's interesting. 2 splitting maul heads welded side by side. That's pretty cool. That alone would give you quite a bit of weight. Tire up on top of this one. This one's just welded right onto the side of a big tank there. Cow. Stick it wherever you want it. This one's on, a lot of them are on wheels or designed so they could be put on wheels. Some of them are anchored into the ground in concrete. That one's a spring. I didn't notice this one. I should have done more close up, but double spring at the back there. You can see that. Stretching springs instead of compression springs. Anyway, about it. I think I'm getting there. Interesting one. One of the uglier ones here. This is a stretch spring, very nicely done. Cheap and simple. Another, look at the weight hanging off the top of that thing. But it works. You can see him doing a lot of wood with them. It's quite a collection of them here. Let me tell you. This is probably, I'm thinking, about the ugliest one I've ever seen. I was thinking about, taking, doing a video on the ugliest ones, prizes or something. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, there's some that are just so simple and, you know, ugly. That one's a candidate. Just complicated, you know. Some of them are very simple, some of them are very complicated, and that's what I'm getting to. Is I found some that are super simple. Throw it in the back of your pickup truck tailgate and go and take it anywhere and do it right off the hitch of the truck. That's where I'm headed. That's what I was looking. The kind of thing I'm looking at is simple. What is the simplest way we can do this without all the complications and the barbell weights and everything else? I mean, you should be able to get enough weight. Just swinging a maul will split it. You know, so you should be able to do this without 300 to 1,000 pounds of metal. And now at this point, I'm wondering, am I ever going to see the end of these? Oh my. I could click and back out, but I'm not going to. I'm going to run to the end of them, and then I'll get on to the next thing. Might come back and do a study. Now this one's interesting. He's got rope or something, cable, to hold it together. One guy did one held together with big C-clamps, welding clamps. What's that? Homemade woodcutter, mechanical cleaver by one's own hands. Okay, that's it. And the next one was where I'm going with it. So, all right. Well, that's it. This is I know there's a lot of them here, but it's an idea. Get it into your head. Now, I'll just say this: the only thing that has to be metal on that is that wedge. So everything else can be wood, rope, bungee cords. You know, don't even have to have steel springs. You could all the spring is doing is it's counterbalancing it so that you can pull it down and it kind of pulls back up. That could be a 5-gallon bucket or a 55-gallon drum with water in it. You know, just counterbalance it however you need to counterbalance it with X amount of water. Fill it up till okay, that's good. You know, it's just a counterbalancing. That's all it's there for. And it doesn't have to be. Somebody gets it in their head. It has to be a spring. No, it doesn't. It has to be a compression spring. No, it doesn't. It can be a stretchy spring. So you go from the stretchy spring to it can be anything that stretches. Okay, bungee cords, and guarantee you there's bungee cords out there heavy enough to do this. Just take 1 or 2 or 3 or how many it takes. Surgical tubing. So there's surgical tubing or the dynamic rope that'll launch things into orbit. So anyway, that's basically it. Simplify it. Think outside the box. Think outside the box. Think outside the box. TOTB. Think outside the box. All right, this is Jerry Diamond. If you're listening to this, you are the remnant.